What's up, Browns fans? Before we dive into the show today, I just want to tell you real quick about Built Bar. Built Bar is the world's first ever protein candy bar, or it might actually be a candy protein bar. Either way, Built Bar provides the nutritional snack you need for a healthy diet without that nasty, chalky taste of a traditional protein bar. Get 10% off your order when you use promo code BARK, B-A-R-K, at Built.com. That's promo code BARK for 10% off your order at Built.com today.
Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Renneker, Zach Kopp, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. We've got Zach and Justin back on the show today. Zach's actually in studio. We got Justin on the screen from home here. How you guys doing?
Go ahead, Zach. Kick it
Look
off.
at all that silence.
Yeah, well, I was seeing if Justin was going to say something first.
I was waiting for that delay, man.
Doing all right. Glad to be back, doing the episode here kind of on the weekend. Kind of helps me, benefits me. So definitely exciting time to be back in the studio too.
Yeah, it's been a lot has happened since we've had you guys in your input.
Right.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield had surgery, so the future is bright.
Yeah,
already.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that and a whole lot more today.
Absolutely.
But just want to throw a shout out to Blake. He's not here again. He just had his daughter. Well, he didn't have her, but
right.
His wife had her last night. So congratulations to Blake and the newest of the Browns fans to enter the world. Today we're going to have Barry Shuck, staff writer from dogsbynature.com, on the show with us. We want to get Barry's perspective on everything that the Browns have been doing, in the last few weeks to build this roster for what should be a hopefully very exciting 2022 season. Before we dive into all that, I want to remind everybody, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, please please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a new episode. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe there as well, Apple, Spotify, Google. And if you can't get enough Browns content and Dogs content, please head over to jointhedogs.com, join our official Patreon community. That community has been blowing up. It's been a ton of fun. Everybody's a diehard Browns fan, and we have a lot of great conversations in there. So check that out. You get an extra episode every week. Dogs After Hours. We're going to be doing one here quick after this show. Get some really, really candid opinions from these two guys here. This ought to be pretty fun. Last thing before we get in with Barry, though, I do want to mention that we are starting a contest, and we're going to run the contest through the NFL draft. So draft night, we're going to have a watch party live on YouTube, April 28th, and we'll announce the winner. But until then, everybody who goes to Apple Podcasts and leaves us a 5-star review will be entered to win a free Browns jersey. And all you got to do is leave a 5-star review, take a screenshot of that, and then send your screenshot to bark@thedogspodcast.com, and then you get entered into the contest. Everybody who enters will get sent a Dogs Podcast sticker in the mail anyway, and then you're also entered in for the free jersey. So pretty excited about doing that. Really want to get some 5-star reviews out there, so please help us out. Do that. Get yourself entered in the contest, and we'll make that announcement on draft night. All right, guys. You guys ready to jump in with Barry here?
Yes. Looking forward to our conversations today.
Well, Mr. Barry Shuck, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I think the NFL has evolved in the last month to the Cleveland Browns and 31 other teams.
Right, yes. It seems to be that way, that's for sure.
Well, Barry, let's just kick things off with the first big thing the Browns did with their offseason here with the Amari Cooper trade with the Dallas Cowboys. Just kind of want to get your perspective on Amari Cooper, the player, the trade, what the Browns gave up in that trade, and how do you think he fits with the Browns and the offense we run here?
Well, my thoughts are, what does Amari Cooper bring to the table that Jarvis Landry doesn't? Because that is who he's replacing. It's one wide receiver one for another wide receiver one. Cooper will turn 28 this summer, whereas Jarvis will turn 30 during the season. So that's pretty much a wash. So they basically got the same build. Jarvis leads in Pro Bowl hardware 5-4 with both their last selection in 2019, and both are excellent downfield blockers. They have great hands. Cooper's a little bit faster with a 4.4240 compared to Jarvis's 4.77. And you got to give the edge to Jarvis for being a vocal team leader, because you can't string together too many sentences together from the soft-spoken Cooper, even if a huge meteorite was hurling towards Earth. So you have to ask yourself, what is the difference? What is the benefit? Well, for one, the difference is price. Jarvis was set to make $16.6 million, and on the last year of his contract. His contract for Cooper is essentially 3 one-year deals worth $20 million per year. Now, after the 22 season, the Browns will basically have 2 options over the next 2 seasons. If they want to keep Cooper, he will cost $20 million. If not, they can release him for no dead money at all. Now, the Browns had the option to restructure the deal and move some money around, including adding void years, and 8 days ago they did. So they're converting the majority of Cooper's $20 million salary for 2022 into a signing bonus and adding 2 voidable years to his current 5-year contract. Now, if you add all that up, General Manager Andrew Barry just saved $15 million on this year's salary cap, which enabled them to nab Deshaun Watson in that huge deal. So if the Browns now are essentially going to pay Cooper, say, $4 to $6 million of salary instead of $16.6 million to Jarvis, does that make sense financially?
Absolutely. Absolutely, financially. Absolutely. Especially if you hear what Jarvis is asking for $20 million apparently anyway with his former agent from Clutch Sports. Yeah.
So let's do a side-by-side comparison on production. In the last 3 years, Cooper has gained 3,168 yards compared to Jarvis's 2,584. So that's real similar. During this same time span, Cooper's had 2 1,000-yard seasons, while Jarvis has had only 1. Cooper scored 21 touchdowns compared to 11. 353 targets for Cooper. Jarvis had, 326. 153 first down catches to 131. So these are not huge differences per se between the two players, but with getting Cooper over Jarvis, they are increased production with a younger, faster player. Plus, Jarvis's numbers have decreased every year, whereas Cooper's has been consistent. Anybody agree with that?
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you there.
Completely agree.
So, but there are a lot of things that the Browns will miss without having Jarvis in the lineup. He's a huge locker room presence. He has leadership abilities. How many number 80 jerseys do you see in the stands on game day? So he's a fan favorite. Plus, he throws a very tight spiral in his toss touchdown. So that threat's gone.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Barry. I think that, ever since Jarvis came to Cleveland, he's had as big a role as anybody in kind of the turnaround. He came to a team that was winless, and, a lot of guys wouldn't have wanted to come to that situation. They would have handled it totally different, and he kind of took on the mindset of he was just going to help turn everything around. And he was one of the crucial guys that did that during his time here. And I kind of agree with you in the sense that the numbers really aren't far off, which may be surprising, I think, to a lot of people, because Amari Cooper, the Alabama guy, been a big name when he was in Oakland, then he went to Dallas, so he was you look at him and you think elite type wide receiver, and then you see Jarvis and you think, a smaller guy who's not, they're not going to put up the same type of production when, statistically they have. Especially, Jarvis dealt with a lot of injuries last year. I think he played injured more than what, maybe fans know and let on. So it's definitely interesting, when you put the stats side by side and you look at things and you're like, okay, well, it is a lot closer than what you think.
Yeah, that was a surprising thing to me that you just said, Barry, were those side-by-side stats, because I think Justin kind of alluded to it too. You think Amari Cooper and this elite level, well, I don't know about elite, but, a number one profile type wide receiver, Dak Prescott's go-to guy. I mean, you see him make some outstanding catches on the field, and he just, when he's on the field, he's a very consistent receiver. And I feel like the thing with Amari is he's not consistently on the field.
Yeah.
Do you know how many games he's missed over the last 3 years in that span that you did the stats, Barry?
No, I do not.
So
Okay.
you're actually going to be surprised.
Oh, you have it? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
so I had his stats pulled up. 2019, he played 16, started 16 games of 16. 2020, 15 of 16. And then he started 14 of 15 games last year. So he missed a couple games last year. But the other 2 years, he played in every game. So it's kind of, it's a little, I thought that was surprising too, because that's one of the knocks, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of had that discussion with like Denzel Ward last year, and we were like, it feels like he's always out of the lineup. Now, just because he played in these games doesn't mean he played the entire game.
Right, because there were some games where we know he was hurt, or he played a quarter and then came out. Yeah, I remember those games.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that too. So, and then Jarvis, obviously, he's been a guy who's always been available pretty much through his career in Cleveland. Missed a couple games here and there. I think he's missed 2, 3, and then he missed 3 games up until last year. And then last year, obviously, he missed, I think it was a total of 5 games last year.
I thought he'd only missed one game up until then. Wasn't it just that COVID game?
And he's 2 years older.
Game.
Yeah, so I had him as he's played 15 games in 2020. This is Jarvis, 15 games in 2020. Mm-hmm. And then in 2018, he missed 2 games. Or no, he played, never mind. He just didn't start 2 games. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm looking at the wrong column.
No, you're good.
Yeah, 14 of 16. So he played in, every game, like you said, other than just coming into this year. And he probably could have sat out more this year than what he actually did.
Yeah.
But we were kind of in that playoff push, and we saw how things were going without Jarvis, that we thought maybe he'd be that spark into the lineup offensively to kind of help things get going, which kind of wasn't the case.
Yeah. So, okay, so Barry, you're bringing up kind of a different side of things, at least for me, and what I think a lot of Browns fans have been thinking is that, Amari Cooper's this number one receiver, but you're saying not any more than what Jarvis could have been. So that kind of leads to the next question here is, our wide receiving core is still thin. So do you expect the Browns to, sign any other free agents at wide receiver, or do you think they're going to add through the draft? And either way they go, are there any names that you think we need to be keeping our eye on?
Yeah, well, it's been rumored that the team is looking into Jarvis Landry coming back, and it's also been rumored that OBJ has reached out after Twitter mentioned that. The problem with OBJ is he won't be physically ready to play till about November. So even if they signed him to the NFL minimum, he would miss all the season. Now, if the Browns make the playoffs, having OBJ on your bench ready to come in and being fresh, coming off of an injury, might be a huge plus. But do you want to pay a guy all year just to rehab? As far as Jarvis coming back, he was set to make $16.6 million. Well, a guy will drop his contract or restructure, but he's not going to go from 16.6 to say 5.
Right.
He would go from 16.6 to say 12, or maybe even stretch it to 10. But I don't think the Browns would want him at $10 or $12 million. So those two guys have been mentioned as being a future Brown player. But to me, the well is kind of run dry in the wide receiver free agent market. It's other than OBJ and Jarvis coming back, the best in the market remaining was Allen Robinson, and he just signed with the Rams.
Yeah.
Green Bay's Marquez Valdes-Scantling was still unsigned until the Chiefs shipped off Tyreek Hill, and then they also signed Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, players that are remaining unsigned as far as free agents are A.J. Green and OBJ are still out there, but Green's age and aforementioned OBJ's injury issues are just concerned. So really, the only two that are left is Sammy Watkins, who is still just 28 years old, and Will Fuller, who was a teammate of Deshaun at Houston and is just 27. Now, Fuller spent last year with Miami but broke a thumb in week 4 and landed on IR for the remainder of the year. Do y'all think that maybe Fuller might be in play for the Browns now that Deshaun is the quarterback?
Yeah, that's the name I was actually just going to ask you about, Barry, that I was kind of looking at. I have the contracts pulled up for, what wide receivers in the NFL are making kind of per year.
Okay.
And Will Fuller was a guy in Miami, like you said. He's 28 years old, and he was making 10.6. So he's kind of right in that middle of the ballpark type range. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Browns are willing to pay for, if they're going to bring in a free agent. They obviously didn't want to pay Jarvis the 16. And, Jarvis felt he was going to go look around the market and see if he was able to find anything available that was going to pay him that. And I know he just fired his agent, and there's been talks he wanted $20 million per year and all this stuff that's going on. Will Fuller, I think, is a guy that, might come in for a little less because of his relationship with Deshaun, and we obviously saw what those two were able to accomplish together in Houston. When Will Fuller is healthy, he could put up 3 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns type of receiver.
I was just pulled up his stats from the 2020 season with Deshaun Watson, and he played with Deshaun in looks like 11 games. And he went for 112, 54, 108, 58, 123, 35, 100, 38, 80, 171, and only 4 of those games out of the 11, he did not score a touchdown.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he got suspended at the end of that season also, right? Or did he play the
entire season? because the rest of the season's empty. Yeah, on the stats.
Yeah, he got suspended.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Would you rather pay Will Fuller 10.6 or Jarvis Landry 10.6 for a year?
Oh, man.
I think that would be a valid question.
Okay, so I'll just go first real quick. Yeah. I think I would rather pay, I hate to say this, I think I'd rather pay Will Fuller just because we've seen what he does with Deshaun Watson on the field. And Jarvis is a great receiver, but he doesn't have that level of explosion. But I'll pass it on to you guys.
What do you think, Justin?
So what I'll say about it is I think you have a true number one at Amari Cooper as far as like that outside guy, that outside wide receiver. Great speed, great direction change, great pass catcher. Like, I think people are sleeping on the Cooper thing a little bit. I mean, he was a top 10 receiver pretty much his whole career. He's that good. So for me, as much as I love the chemistry that you'd have with Fuller and Watson, why wouldn't you just bring Jarvis back and have that legit true slot receiver again that we thought we'd always have with Jarvis, and then he never got to be that true positional player for us? So that's just my output on it. That's what I'm thinking.
This one's tough because if you're thinking like with your heart, you want to say Jarvis, I think, is the biggest thing. Like you're like, man, what would it be like to bring him back, and allow him to now play on this Cleveland team with a different quarterback and really get to show, what he could bring to the city, to this team, this organization. But Will Fuller is just kind of been that guy that's that over-the-top weapon that can be used on he can beat his guy one-on-one, and you throw it up to him, and him and Watson just so many, replays and highlights like I've watched of Deshaun Watson after we've signed him, or passes he's thrown to Will Fuller in Houston. So it'd be nice to have Will Fuller because we haven't really had that type of wide. I know Anthony Schwartz was supposed to be our burner. You can take the lid off the defense. He's got to take a huge step forward. I'm probably leaning Jarvis.
Back to the heart. I'm
probably leaning Jarvis just because of what he would mean to this team and everything of bringing him back. And then just the worrisome of, Fuller, like you said, Barry, broke his thumb last year and then he was out. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to, trust a guy who's always been banged up. I mean, I got his stats pulled up here. Since he came into the league in 2016, he played 14 games. Then he's only played 10, 7, 11, 11, and 2. So he's never played he's never played a full season in the NFL.
What do you think, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. And he does have a chemistry with Deshaun, but if you're paying a guy to be hurt all the time, you got to take that in consideration. And then you don't know what's going to happen with Schwartz, usually the second year. And then we haven't even mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. Right. So let's say that DPJ is wide receiver 2. And if you bring Jarvis back, we're still needing a slot guy. And I would assume right now, if you take the roster as it is right now without adding anybody, I would have to say that Schwartz or maybe even Demetric Felton is going to be your slot guy, with DPJ on the one outside and Cooper on the other outside. And then Felton and Schwartz will, and maybe if they bring back Marcus Bradley, can compete for, the fourth wide receiver. But that's exactly what they're looking at without bringing in Fuller or Jarvis. I think their answer is probably going to be in the draft. This is a very deep receiver draft, and I really expect the Browns to come away with at least 2 guys in the draft. Now, in round 2, they have pick number 44, and believe it or not, I think Penn State's Jahan Dotson just might be there. I believe the first round will be dependent on the quarterbacks available this year and which teams are desperate to grab one, like maybe the Steelers, perhaps the Panthers, the Falcons. The Seahawks still don't have a guy. And that's going to make some players drop, like perhaps Dotson. I cover the Senior Bowl every year, and Dotson was there this year. He had an impressive catch radius. He's a very likable kid, well-spoken, has a great route tree. He's difficult to cover. And basically, he caught everything thrown his way during Senior Bowl week. The last guy I saw that was taken in the 3rd round a few years ago by a guy by the name of Cooper Kupp. He was sensational at the Senior Bowl. And I said to somebody, that kid contorts his body just to try to catch that ball. Now, Dotson's just 5'11", and he's 184 pounds, coming out of a Chinese buffet, but he will play through contact and is excellent at the catch point. He dropped only 2 out of 93 catchable targets last year. He runs a 4.43. Did any of y'all catch any Penn State games this year? Last year?
I'd never watched like a full Penn State game or anything like that, but I did, obviously, knowing that the Browns were hurting at wide receiver during the season, I started kind of looking ahead, seeing what wide receivers are going to be in the draft, and Dotson's name kept coming up. So I was watching Penn State games or replays or highlights or whatever of Dotson, and definitely an impressive player.
Yeah, and he's a good kid. And going into the 3rd round, the Browns have 2 picks, their own at number 78, and then they got a compensatory pick at number 99. And I think at number 78, maybe Justin Ross of Clemson. He led the nation in yards per route run his freshman year and has tremendous ball skills. He was the freshman player of the year in that conference. He's not the fastest guy. He runs 4.6340, but he's 6'4", 205 pounds. So, he's a red zone threat. Now, a lot of folks are high on Alex Pierce from Cincinnati, who's also a tall kid, but he was also at the Senior Bowl, and every time I saw him on the practice field, he had a horrible time against some of the better defensive backs in the nation covering him. He's 6'3", but he's a fighter, but he just dropped too many passes in 1 week for me.
Okay, those are some good names to throw out there. I just wonder, do you see any situation where one of the top 5 receivers, maybe projected to go in the first round, drop in the first round toward the back end? Do you see any situation where the Browns try to move up to grab a guy maybe at the end of the first round or early second?
Well, Andrew Berry did that last year with JOK. He is not so far in his drafts, he has not moved up or down in the first round, but he proved last year that rounds 2 down to 7 are all game to move up to grab a guy. So certainly if somebody drops into the early, the mid-30s, it wouldn't be much to go up and get somebody. Now, I'm going to give you another name, and I want you to remember this. Khalil Shakir of Boise State. In the third round, he should be there. Now, when you have Brian Bessarge on the show closer to the draft, ask him about this kid, okay?
Okay.
Shakir is a human highlight reel. You need to YouTube him. He's got great body control, great hands, 4.43 speed. Now, he's only 6 foot and 196 pounds, but he understands how to use leverage. He can find the soft spots in zone. And he was a 2-time first-team All-Mountain West and just a really quick guy. Now, the Browns, right now, with what they have on their roster, barring Anthony Schwartz taking the spot, they need a slot guy, and Shakir would fit perfectly in the slot, which is what the Browns are looking for. He's got no issues going across the field in traffic or running the jet sweep. Now, his only negative is that he's got a very thin build, so durability long term is a question.
Okay. Well, I mean, the size isn't necessarily as big of an issue as it might have been a few years ago, I feel like, because a lot of these teams in the NFL are moving toward these smaller sized receivers that just have crazy speed and playmaking ability.
Yeah, so I was just looking up another. I'm just going to throw this name out there. It's a veteran guy that's I forgot that he was available as a free agent. His team just cut him. But when you started talking slot receiver, Cole Beasley, I was like looking through the list. I'm like, man, I forgot that Buffalo cut him. Now he is 32, so he's going to be 33 this season. So but he had 112 targets last year, 107 the year before, and 106. So it was his most targeted year. He didn't have the yardage he'd had in his last 2 years in Buffalo or the touchdowns. But for a guy that's out there that, he might be sitting there for a while, because I think he made $7 million last year and they cut him. And then they ended up signing, I think Jamison Crowder went to Buffalo. So he's a veteran guy that's out there, that if he sits there and he's like, I want to go to a contending type team, that, I'll take a discount type of a guy, because at this year or at this age, I think he's got in the league in 2012, so he's going to be 10 years in. I don't think he's looking at big payday type of a deal.
Yeah, what do you think about Beasley?
Any of y'all know the Browns' stance on getting the COVID shots?
I actually do not. Yeah, because that was a big thing with him last year. That's right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was a huge proponent against. He was very vocal. So I'm not sure how that would work into the plan of the Browns, whether they are allowing players to not get their shots and their boosters versus having everybody done. I think it's team by team.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that could be why somebody like him sits out there for a while, because they're just not wanting to have to deal with that.
I mean, we are seeing the NBA though back off a lot of these COVID restrictions. New York finally did it so that Kyrie could play. I know that wasn't the NBA, that was the city and all that stuff, but
and it might have been why he was cut.
Right.
Might have something to do with it. We'll just have to pay attention to see what the NFL ends up doing as far as those are concerned, because you're right, got to take those in consideration too now. Yeah,
and the last guy I can kind of forward to you a little bit is in round 4. I like David Bell of Purdue. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He was consensus All-American in last year, and he made first team All Big Ten the last 2 seasons. Now he's got some negatives. One is he runs a 4.65, so he could catch Jarvis, but not many other people. He's got good strength, and he can overpower smaller cornerbacks, but he's just got average lateral quickness, and he just gets a lot of penalties. He pushes off quite a bit, and he hasn't learned to keep his elbows in when he pushes off, so once it goes straight. And that's going to be an issue at the next level.
So what round were you saying to keep an eye on him potentially?
Round 4.
4, okay. All right. Well, I mean, as a 4th round pick, you know, you're going to deal with more, you know, issues like that with a guy.
Right.
Developmental things that you got to work on.
Yes.
All right. Any other receivers you guys wanted to bring up, discuss real quick?
That's it for me.
Yep. Same here.
Justin, you good?
I'm good, man. Watch out for wily vets. Some guys are going to want to come play with Deshaun Watson.
Speaking of guys who might want to come play with Deshaun Watson, not necessarily at the receiving position, but we know that the Browns really need to address the defensive line. That's still an area of weakness for the team, especially on the defensive side. I mean, it's kind of Myles Garrett and, you know, just a pish-posh of all these other people. So are there free agents out there, Barry, that you think the Browns are still going to target? Because we've talked about it on the show the last couple of weeks, the free agents at the defensive line position right now still available. It's a lot longer list than wide receiver.
Yeah, it is. It is. I would love to see them bring Jadeveon Clowney back.
Yeah.
I think a couple of things that are going on with Jadeveon Clowney is that, one, he works on his own timeline. He doesn't seem to be in a hurry. He's one of those that will wait till the last minute to see what the best deal is. And I think he's always been a guy of who's going to pay me the most, and I understand that. I understand that completely. I think he's also going to want a multi-year deal, and I think it would be prudent for the Browns to offer him something in the 3-year deal, say in the $10 million a year range, with some guaranteed and some, you know, signing bonus, and then some incentives that maybe can push that up to 12, 14 million. But I honestly believe he's a great run stuffer. He had his second most sacks of his career with 9.5 last year. And the first part of the year, you didn't really see him in the offensive backfield that much. He's great against the run. You're not going to run to his side. He's not going to get pushed to the side. He's good about chasing down runners on the outside lanes, even across the field. But from the second half, from the bye week on, all of a sudden you started seeing Jadeveon Clowney chasing quarterbacks that were scrambling for their lives. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. The second half of the season was insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to see him bring him back, and he's already got chemistry, and they already like him, and he was healthy last year. He didn't miss hardly anything. I think he was out for COVID once, and other than that, he was completely healthy. I think defensive tackle is a concern this year. Now they signed the guy from the Jaguars, Trayvon Bryan, who's a good plug and play guy, but you look at. They got, you know, Malik McDowell got arrested, so he's not going to come back. Malik Jackson was a roller coaster and probably played bad more than he played good, so they're not going to offer him back. Jordan Elliott, I don't know if he's ever going to develop. What's your feelings about Jordan Elliott?
I know I was a proponent last year before the season. I thought he was going to really shine with having Clowney, with having Garrett. He was going to really step in. Like, it was make it year for him, and we just never really saw it, you know, from him. So when I'm looking at him, I don't know. I don't think I don't have great expectations from him going into his year 3 now.
Yeah, I think he's just regressed. So, you know, that's an issue right there. And then you've got Tommy Tugai from Ohio State last year. And the first part of the year, I'd say for the first 9-10 games, I don't think he had very, very few snaps. But as the season wore on, you got to see him more and more. And I really expect that after that first year, his rookie year, he's going to try to get and compete for a starting position. And I think Brian's going to come in. What I'd like to see them do is bring in Akiem Hicks from Chicago.
Yep, that's who we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe he's still available. I think he's asking for too much money. Is maybe the problem. He's 334 pounds, so between Zach's not going to move him on a pulling play.
Right.
Blake's not going to move him. Blake and Zach maybe be moving him, but he's going to plug. And also somebody like Hicks, what they would also do is they would also protect the linebackers. That was a thing last year, is that there were several teams, including New England, that just ran right up the gut on us on the inside gaps. And so then your middle linebackers being taken out constantly. Hicks is not going to be a guy that you're going to move out of the way. He's a good run stuffer. He's not a pass rusher. He's not going to chase anybody down. But if they could bring in somebody like that with Brian and then two guys is a backup, I think the defensive tackle position would be solved.
So you said he might be asking for too much money. How much money is he asking for?
I think the projection is probably about 10 to 11 million a year. And the problem with that is that the Browns are an analytics team. And analytics say, pay the quarterback, pay wide receiver 1, pay defensive end 1, and pay cornerback 1 and 2, but everybody else you can get it at the thrift store. And so you look at last year, Malik Jackson got 3.5. Tack McKinley got $3 million. Malik McDowell got 995. And then you got Jordan Elliott on a third round salary, and you've got Tommy Tugai on a fifth round salary. So see, you've got all these low-dough guys. So he wants to pay $3-4 million for a defensive tackle, and I just think maybe Hicks is just too much. Even if Hicks lowered his price down to say $6 million, I still think Barry is just going to pass on it.
Yeah, a guy that I've kind of been interested in that's a free agent at the defensive tackle position is a former Brown, Ogunjobi. He's still kind of sitting out there. He's a younger guy, so I'm guessing it's a money thing too with him.
I thought he got signed.
No, he's hurt. He's hurt.
Yeah, he's still unsigned. I know the Bengals are. There was a report I read saying that it was still a possibility they wanted to bring him back. But seeing him in Cleveland.
I think his injury is going to linger until next season, and that's probably why he's not signed.
Okay, so he's probably a guy that's going to be he's going to have to wait it out, unless the price was just too good to be true.
Yeah, another defensive tackle that's still unsigned is Sheldon Richardson. He was paid $3.5 million last year, so when the Browns dropped him, he was making $12, and that's the reason why they let him go, because I thought he was a great run stuffer.
Right.
And he signed a 1-year deal for $3.5. He's still unsigned. So I'd love to see them bring Sheldon Richardson in. And then you'd have 4 guys that just rotate in, because, when they're that big, you got to give them a blow during the game.
Right.
As far as defensive end, as far as free agents go, Arden Key from the 49ers is still out there. He's only 26. Now, he's probably going to be a situational pass rusher, but he logged 6.5 sacks last year. He's probably the best defensive end that's still unsigned if you're looking for free agents.
I just want to remind everybody about DraftKings. Make sure you join in on the action on the court during the biggest tournament of the year with DraftKings Sportsbook. Turn your team's victory into your own big win. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. It's that simple. If they win, you win. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still join the college hoops action with DraftKings Pools. Everybody can play free pools all March long for a shot at a share of over $250,000 in prizes. Simply join a pool and answer questions like who will make it to the next round and who will hit the most three-pointers, and track your results. Go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use promo code TPPN. Bet $5 on any college hoops team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code TPPN. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook, you must be 21 years or older to play. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details. What about you, Justin? You got anybody in mind?
No, man, but all I'll say about it is for the last couple of years, every time that this team has had like a staggering weakness, it's been addressed, and it's been addressed to the full potential. And whether it was the offensive line, the defense last year. So as far as, and I'll even go back to the wide receiver issue, wide receiver and then the end / tackle. I'm not worried about it. I trust the process, and I'm excited to see what Andrew Berry does the next couple weeks, and including the draft.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, that they have addressed these areas of need to the fullest. And I guess that kind of brings us to the last big topic here, which we're going to definitely spend some time on here with you guys and Barry. Deshaun Watson, that quarterback situation was dicey last year. We knew it was an area of need that the Browns were going to be addressing, and did they? Oh, my Lord. So I haven't gotten your guys' opinions yet on the show about this, so let's go, Justin. Let us know what you're feeling about Deshaun, Zach, and then we'll dive into it with Barry.
Okay, so for Deshaun Watson, I mean, if there's no legal trouble, this is like an absolute home run. You're set for multiple. I'm literally like, there's an 8 to 10 year window where you can just be, that position is not worried about. And as a Browns fan, my whole life, we've never had a quarterback. I'm 36. I've never seen us have a quarterback. And don't get me wrong, I'm not beating up on Baker. I know Baker, this isn't a good time to, but we knew that everything had to be perfect around him for him to be successful. This isn't the case at all with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is a straight savage. He has run threat with it. He's got a absolute just shotgun of an arm. He can get the ball, zip it out. He can throw guys open. The things that we complained about for the last year, and I know Baker was banged up. Once again, I'm not going to just keep beating up on Baker because I feel bad for the guy. The guy was one of those foundation pieces where he led us out of that, rough 0-16 kind of window. But, man, if you watch highlights of Deshaun Watson, you better take him down. You better sack him because if he slips the tackle, it's over. You're done. He'll either burn you for 20 yards or he'll throw it down the field and hit a guy on a dime. I'm not even worried at all. The situation, quarterback-wise, couldn't be any better. You're not going to have him for probably, worst case, you're not going to have him for a year. And I think you see with them signing Jacoby Brissett, the offense is kind of shifting in a different direction where a Baker Mayfield couldn't do the things that even like a Jacoby Brissett is going to be able to do as far as RPO options. I think this offense is going to evolve into a completely different direction with Deshaun Watson / Jacoby Brissett. Nick Chubb has got to be just absolutely salivating somewhere, hopefully in Cleveland, not doing anything. But I don't know. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. Is there terrible legal repercussions that come with it? Yes. Are you your average fan maybe not be open to the idea of what all that baggage is going to be? But from the beginning, the guy said he's innocent. You're seeing grand juries come back saying that there's not a lot of evidence. And at the end of the day, there's going to be people that are going to say, hey, no, there's all these allegations against him. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm the father of 2 daughters. For me, I'm comfortable with this decision. I'm okay with that. The guy has been nothing but kind of a gem in his community in Texas until all these allegations came out. He was a community guy. He was a hard worker. His teammates never talked bad about him. He dragged a sorry-ass Houston Texan team along for 2020 and just with no weapons, with no anything, no line, no number one receiver. Will Fuller's out here just balling out looking like Hopkins. I don't know. Go ahead, guys. I'm rambling. I can, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, what are your reactions to this?
So I was probably the most pro Baker guy, I would say, towards the end of last year of, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt with how the season went on. Getting Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, you obviously are upgrading at the position, and you can point at some of the numbers and say that, Baker and his at times were similar, but just the wow factor and the different type, of lengthening plays and some of the things that Deshaun Watson can do on a field, if you surround him with elite talent, in a good coaching and an organization that, wants to get better and doesn't trade all their picks away Houston
Correct.
did for years. That kind of limited them from being, Deshaun Watson had the Chiefs down in a playoff game, like 20-0 or something like that.
24-0.
24-0, you know, and then the collapse that happened after that in the second half. But, you know, getting him the quarterback is an upgrade. Like Justin said, the legal issues off the field, it's not ideal that you know, that anybody wants to have. That shouldn't be, like, they had the press conference the other day, and that's what they talked about. I think that I was listening to Sirius Radio yesterday, and they said, I think they asked one football question in that press conference, and that shouldn't be what this is, you know, getting this signing is all about. So you're going to, the fan base, you know, you got them split kind of down the middle at the moment of half are really happy and excited and half of them aren't. I do feel bad for Baker in a way. You know, the guy was here, did a lot for the community and things like that, not just for the team. Now, obviously, there's some things probably behind closed doors with the team that a lot of people don't know about that have happened. But I do kind of feel bad for him because I really don't know where he's going to go. And I think that's the problem the organization's having right now of they thought there were some teams that might want him and had it lined up, and now things have kind of hit a stalemate, so to say. But getting Deshaun Watson, I'm excited for what's going to come. I don't think we're going to find out, though, here for a while of what his suspension, with how many civil cases there are and working through all the legal proceedings, and the NFL is doing an investigation. I mean, we saw it with the Zeke Elliott when he was kind of under investigation. He was able to play 7 or 8 games, and then he got suspended in the one season. So it's kind of a thing that we just won't know till we know.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at the Dogs Podcast, and become an official Dog Pack member and join thedogs.com.